Hi, my name is Tuna McCain, and this is my presentation on the role of social media in U.S. processes of disaster response. Now, as showcased in this graph by the World in Data, a prominent think tank dedicated to realizing graphical representations of UN data involving the environment, the amount of natural disasters reported has dramatically increased in the recent years. Now, this has been led to a correlation of carbon dioxide emissions, which is showcased in this graph by the Union of Concerned Scientists, which exemplifies China and the United States being the world's leaders in carbon emissions. Cross-referencing this with a source by the UNI SDR, another UN-affiliated organization dedicated to disaster response around the globe, showcases the US and China as being the leaders in disaster zones, areas that are located in the nation that have proliferation of natural disasters. Now, the link between the environment and natural disasters has led me to use the Margaret Thatcher speech to the United Nations General Assembly as the stimulus to create a link between natural disasters and the declining environment. Ever since the 80s in her presentation, the world, including the UN, has been attempting to remedy the situation of our declining environment. However, it was not until the advent of social media that an effective solution that can both address large audiences as well as the individual can be utilized to address such natural disasters. Social Media and the Movement of Ideas by Edward Kessler exemplifies this idea. His statement that websites such as Facebook, especially Twitter and YouTube, that enables users to communicate and engage on a large scale and create content information at an unprecedented level of speed and accessibility really embodies the presence of social media and how it can be applied to processes of natural disaster response in America. This leads us to the question, what role does social media possess in American processes of natural disaster response? Now, one of the first perspectives in analyzing natural disaster response is the interpersonal or individual-to-individual communication via social media. The unifications of communities is the central component of such a perspective. Ideas such as quote-unquote safe lists, where users post who is safe and who has been afflicted or not been afflicted by a natural disaster, helps community reconstruction and community unification during natural disaster crises and follow them. As well as interpersonal informational distribution, where users, especially on Twitter, during crisis events spread imperative information regarding crises, such as recovery locations for hurricanes or other such things for other such natural disasters. This allows individuals to have a large voice to speak towards a larger audience and therefore affect a large amount of people in reducing mortality rates. However, individuals are not the only party that can benefit from the use of social media. Organizations have already been utilizing social media through direct social media use. PSENG, a corporation dedicated to electricity support, usually in the Midwest, have proliferated the information regarding their recovery centers or the locations of their generators during times of crises. FEMA, which is the U.S. Department, which is supported by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, a federal organization, has utilized their Twitter account to spread information regarding natural disasters before, during, and after they occur in order to reach a large amount of people regarding the disasters. However, social media is not simply a platform, but an inspiration to create platforms to address natural disasters. The Red Cross has created a mobile application which users can download that allows them valuable information such as first aid, emergency response, and other such services that the Red Cross provides in times of need. Now, perhaps one of the most imperative and important consequences of social media in disaster response is the technological advancement that social media provides to contemporary models of disaster response. New data analysis techniques such as VOS, or Virtual Online Support Teams, do open source data filtering of aggregate social media data, which is filtered towards emergency personnel or emergency organizations to better create a large-scale representation of personnel, of the community, and of people during the time of natural disasters. This, in combination with ideas such as local or location triangulation by cross-referencing social multimedia platforms such as Flickr and Twitter, which were shown by Fred and Denise Volte of George Mason University, have exemplified images such as the one shown above, where the red hotspots are the significant amounts of forestry which were affected by a fire, which are located by the tiny white specks which indicate social media accounts reporting the disaster. As such, they can create effective maps such as these to represent and correctly identify the space in which a disaster is occurring. However, this is not the limit of social media and disaster response. So, a national event surveillance system is required in order to be able to improve disaster response, as disaster response is currently located separated in different organizations. With the national event surveillance system, which could be created through the emission of federal incentives to organizations, small scale and large scale organizations can communicate in order to improve disaster response. FEMA, organizations such as FEMA and UNICEF could cooperate with smaller disaster relief organizations such as Disaster Relief of Oklahoma to better cooperate and create disaster response techniques that are aimed towards both the community and the nation as a whole. This cross-organizational communication, however, is limited. Difficulty in effectively managing large amounts of information due to the propagation of misinformation by social media accounts through subjective interpretation of the information provided is a large consequence of such large source aggregate data sourcing. Such ideas that prioritize data and data prioritization of what is essential to disaster response is necessary in order to be able to effectively and efficiently process all the data created via disaster response through the usage of social media. However, in conclusion, social media is a tool that can be utilized and is being utilized in disaster response today. However, it can be effectively improved through large source aggregate data collection and analysis in combination with large-scale organizational and combined with small-scale organizational communication. Thank you.
Thank you. Chunda, how did your research question evolve as you moved through the research process, and did your research question go in a different direction?
Well, my research question originated in the presence of natural disasters and the proliferation of such due to the worsening environment, such as CO2 emissions. And really it evolved into not really solving the issue because it's such a large scale issue, but first addressing the issue in terms of human impact. Human impact was the most significant effect of natural disasters, as the environment is not primarily afflicted in a negative manner. So once I discovered that human impact was really the essential portion of researching, I decided to turn it into disaster response.
Okay, thank you. How does your conclusion respond to any of the other research or sources you examined?
Well, my conclusion really ties into a mixture of the sources that I found in terms of their conclusions. The idea of cross-organizational communication is an idea birthed from the need for a large-scale national surveillance system for natural disasters, which has been promoted by several natural disaster organizations and that are currently addressing the issue of proliferation of natural disasters themselves.
Thank you.